what is it that's so stressful why doctors are more than likely to commit suicide, or they are depressed and stressed? I mean,
Well, there are many, many factors. I've given this a lot of consideration because I've had mental health problems too. So, there are many factors. The most obvious right now is overwork. I mean, my mates who are still working in the profession as consultants telling me that they are overwhelmed by this virus and there isn't enough money or staff to deal with it.
So I want to say thank you very much, Anna, for having me, because we've been friends for some time now and you've welcomed me into your home again and again, and you've been an inspiration to me, you've been a mentor to me at times, and you've just been so amazing. So I want to say thank you for even doing our meet-up today, because...
Oh, darling, it's my pleasure. It's always fun to see you.
I just
you always make me laugh. We have a bit of a giggle.
So I truly, absolutely appreciate you. So hold on, question. Before we start, do you still like the title Dr. Anna Brocklebank? Or
No, just
you're not
Anna
partial?
Brocklebank.
Okay.
Just Anna.
Okay. So the DR is there.
Yeah. But I don't use it, and I just call myself Anna Brocklebank, without doctor or without lady. Sometimes it's helpful to use either doctor or lady.
Because you are a lady as well.
Yeah, but, well, only according to Debrett's. I don't know, you see my behaviour, it's very unladylike. But I just prefer to go by Anna, because that Ms thing, what the hell's that all about?
I understand. So clearly you was a doctor.
Yeah.
You just stated it just now. So what doctor was you? What was your...
I was a very good doctor.
Yeah.
I did many years in general practice, and then I went into sexual health and specialised in that, which was terrific. Oh, don't look at me like that. No,
I swear I didn't say anything.
No. I was just reminiscing, thinking about our department. We used to have it was such fun. Being a doctor then and looking after the patients and so on, not like it is today. Sadly, I had to retire a couple of years ago, but my colleagues who are still working, I mean, it isn't fun. Being a doctor nowadays is not fun. It's very far from fun. So I guess I got out at the right time.
Yeah.
Although I miss it terribly.
Brilliant. And so now, well, it's funny, this whole show and even the book that I'm writing about,
I can't wait to read it.
Oh man, I'm halfway through, so I'm actually I'm quietly excited about it, and so I'm going to be traveling away in the next few days, and I'm going to be focused on just pretty much writing the book as well, no distractions. So I'm excited
Good luck.
about it. But the book that I'm writing, and even the show, Kevin Bennett's Trauma, was, and hopefully still is, fundamentally about helping, building, empowering people, but also looking at careers that have the highest depression, suicide.
Oh, I look at doctors and lawyers. I mean, I'm qualified in law, and I'm in the two professions with the highest suicide rate. Don't forget judges.
I've never known about judges. I've known that surgeons have the highest suicide rate, and I'm aware that doctors, dentists are near behind.
But judges too. Well, think about it. Judges, people want to get at them, don't they? They want to... blackmail them, this, that. I mean, to be a judge is quite a serious matter.
And very paranoid as well.
Yeah, because you are a target. Anyway, it's just a very high instance of suicide in there as well. But now, since the pandemic started, I know you're well aware that the instance of suicide has just gone through the roof.
Yes.
And I think it's terribly sad that we as a country are not doing more to help the mental health, which is why I was so excited about your project. It sounds brilliant. Yes. I wouldn't expect anything less than brilliant.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And so that's what this project is about. It's about helping people that are going through mental and emotional trauma overall. And so, firstly, what is it about, because people on the outside looking in, they believe that being a doctor, you're going to get paid good money and so on and so forth. And they kind of look at the surface side of it.
Oh.
What is it that is so stressful, especially probably more nowadays than before? What is it that's so stressful why doctors are more than likely to commit suicide? or they are depressed and stressed? I mean,
Well, there are many, many factors. And I've given this a lot of consideration because I've had mental health problems too. So, there are many factors. The most obvious right now is overwork. I mean, my mates who are still working in the profession as consultants telling me that they are overwhelmed by this virus and there isn't enough money or staff to deal with it. So that's very stressful because, you see, you make one slip and someone can die. I mean, it really is as dramatic as that.
Wow.
So that's one reason why it's stressful.
So did you used to take some of your cases home to bed with you?
Oh, my Lord, yes. If you were lucky enough to get to bed. I mean, sometimes when I was doing
burnout
night...
is a major thing as well.
Yeah, and doing night calls, when one used to do night calls, when I was in general, you sometimes you wouldn't sleep. And certainly when I was in hospital medicine doing surgery, there were many nights that you just worked through the night and the day. It is there's a lot of responsibility, and the other thing is you often have no social life, or it can destroy your relationship.
Right.
Yeah, you've got a date with your partner, and then at the last minute you have to say, sorry, darling, there's a new case that's come in for surgery, won't be back till 9 or 10. It's okay to do that once or twice, but if that's a regular thing, it can destroy a relationship.
Yeah, sure.
There are many reasons why it's stressful. But having said that, it is probably the most rewarding thing I can think of doing.
Wow.
And I miss every minute of practicing.
Wow. And so, with that said, we're in, documented one of the most stressful times
without parallel.
In history, right?
Yeah.
Or recent history, recorded history.
Yeah.
Maybe we should say recorded history. You have a good insight into the journey of stress, trauma, but also climbing out of the other end. What is it that you see now, what's going on, that you would see as a...
Well, I understand what you're asking. I mean, I, like everyone else, knows very well that the suicide rate has gone up, divorce rate has gone up, mental health issues, a real problem. And this is very serious. Because if you weigh up the morbidity resulting from COVID, the virus, and if you think of mental health as being just as serious as having the virus, if not more, because don't forget, people die, the depression stops them working, anxiety problems, it's really serious. If you weigh them up and you look at mental health problems...
Side by side.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite obvious that the priority should be looking after the mental health of our nation. Because I am of the view, and I'm of the view that this is going to have long-term repercussions. Wow. And I'm very sad that our government hasn't seen fit to consider mental health in the way that they've considered COVID, which we've got to learn to live with, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kevin?
I mean, it's the same thing. Like, I believe human beings, firstly, are not designed to be isolated.
Absolutely.
And this is the reason why it's one of the most... in prison, that's one of the most punishing punishments, to put someone into isolation.
Exactly. I'm so pleased you brought that up, because think of all these old ladies, they're mainly old ladies and gentlemen, in nursing homes. They have been deprived of seeing their friends and family for over a year. Imagine that.
Yeah.
That's just like being...
I mean, you get homesick after being away for 2-3 weeks. So
well, I think we've all learned. I mean, I know you're just, you like me, probably consider yourself fiercely independent and didn't need anyone. I think most of us think that, don't we?
Yeah.
Boy, did we get a shock, or at least I did. I mean, being isolated, not in contact with human beings, it made me realise how vulnerable and fragile we all are.
Even just the simple things like just giving someone a hug. We are now questioning hugging people.
I know.
We are now questioning hugging
I think this is it's possible that this might last for a very long time, social distancing and all the rest of it. Because this virus isn't going anywhere. I mean, it's not going to I don't.
They're going to talk about variants.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to learn to live with it.
Yeah, they talk about variants quite a bit, and I believe every time we get a bit comfortable, they're going to introduce a new variant. True or not?
We shall see.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, exactly.
But what we all know is that people are really suffering emotionally and mentally, and this should be viewed very seriously, I think.
Yeah. So tell us about. I mean, I know so much about you, and I love it. But for those who don't know who Anna, Dr. Lady Brocklebank is, obviously within the lady and the doctor, there's a journey. I know you always say to me, journey. What does journey mean?
Yes. We're talking going on holiday or something.
Sometimes when I see the reason why I don't use story sometimes, because story sounds a bit like a made up fairy tale.
Yeah.
And so when you say journey, it sounds a bit more, it's got the grit and the grind.
Do you think so? Yes. Well, my journey, as you put it, has been. I was going to say disgraceful. No, but I've certainly had my ups and downs. Mm-hmm. But you see, the thing is, if you didn't have the downs, you wouldn't appreciate the ups. But that's what I keep telling myself when I find myself feeling.
Yeah.
So I mean, yes, I've had my difficulties in life. I had a problem with drugs. I've had 2 divorces, and I can tell you divorce is not nice, even though you might say it's going to be amicable. And yes, so I've had my own trauma, but we've all got to get on with it, haven't we?
No, it's very true, because even like one of the reasons why I created this show is because I've had my traumas as well. I've had a son that died. And I don't normally talk about it.
Yeah.
I had a brother that died.
Yeah.
Recently, within the last few years, I've had a sister that died. I've been stabbed 5 different times in my life.
Lord, have mercy,
And the journey of my father having prostate cancer, that was, oh my gosh. And so there are some of us who can kind of comfortably express our trauma in public, and there are others who suffer in silence.
Well, this is why it's so exciting what you're doing. I mean, it couldn't have been better timed. And
well, it's funny that you say that, because I've been focused on mental and emotional trauma since 2009, and for some reason every year I would still do what I can within that sector. But every year it was just plodding along.
And putting it off.
No, it's not. No, it wasn't that I was putting it off, because I was always working that path. But what I discovered, people weren't ready for that conversation.
Oh, you're absolutely right. It wasn't the done thing to talk about mental problems.
Exactly.
Very uncool. And I think that's because people are frightened of what they can't see. You know, if you have measles or a broken leg, people will be very sympathetic, or if you've got cancer, very sympathetic. But you say you've got mental problems, and people are a little bit wary. And I don't think it's prejudice. I think it's nothing more than an innate fear of what you can't see and the unknown.
I believe from my experience, people are scared of being judged or ousted or isolated. And I'll tell you the reason why.
But that's how people react, you see. And I think they react like that because of fear.
Well, worry is imagination. And so when people have an imagination about what people may think about them, then worry kicks in, which then brings in all the other... It's a gateway to the other emotions. Fear.
I hadn't thought of it quite like that.
Yeah, because I'll give a prime example. In the second chapter of my book, it may get moved around, but in the second chapter of my book, I talk about a Dr. Hellman. Dr. Hellman was a doctor in America, and he was going through what a lot of doctors go through. I think what's slightly different, I'm not sure if it's the same over here, I'm still researching it, but in America, if doctors showed their mental problems, the license board, the board will get...
Oh, absolutely. You see, and so this is why, and it's not just doctors. I think there are many jobs where if you're seen to have a mental problem,
Yeah.
no, you're sidelined. And why? I think it's because of fear. That people concerned who are sidelining you think, oh, what is he or she going to do next? Mental, they might have a psychotic fit, without knowing,
Exactly.
understanding
And
the
so
illness.
what these doctors were doing, they weren't using their credit cards, they weren't using anything. They were going to different cities and towns, etc., and they were paying cash for help. But there were other doctors that weren't doing that at all, and they were suffering in silence, and which led to suicide and so on and so forth. Because only so much, there's a saying, pressure bursts pipes, and there's only so long people could hold on to their kind of inner pain before that happens.
You are so right, and it couldn't be more applicable now what you're doing now, because doctors and nurses, because that's what we're talking about, they have, on the whole, all of them come to the end of their tether. They've been pushed for so many years, because you see, before this pandemic, I don't know whether you're aware, for about the previous 10 years, there'd been a pay rise, freeze on pay rises, while other people were getting raises. And not only was there a freeze on that, but there was far more work to do with less help. So there was always a fear of making a mistake. And because if you're understaffed, mistakes are bound to happen, and that causes stress for the doctor. And they've all come to the end of their tether, and I think this pandemic is going to have repercussions in mental terms for a very long time to come. Don't forget about the 5 and 6 year old children.
Right, so you said something before when we were setting up. You was talking about like a 5 or 6 year old who hasn't lived a life at all yet, but they've already been in isolation.
For a sixth of their life.
Wow.
Now imagine,
And
I
that's
know
the
how old
developmental
you are,
years.
so imagine if you had spent 9 years of your life locked up in isolation.
Oh, right, you're right, because it's a sixth of... Wow, you're right. So, and especially in developmental years when you...
And it's even worse for the kids, because as you said, this is when they learn the most, when they develop. Now, many of these kids, now that they're going back to school, are showing signs of anxiety and distress.
Right.
And that's just the beginning of it. You see, we could have generations. And, think about the 17, 18-year-olds who are supposed to be going first year to university and learning how to socialise and whatever. They've missed out on all of that. And that's terribly important. The social development is so important.
It's
For later on in life. So this pandemic, I'm sure, will have repercussions in terms of mental health for a long time. So you'll be in business.
But do you know what? But I believe I don't even believe the effects has really been shown publicly yet to the level.
No, people don't seem to be thinking. This is why I asked you to possibly think of mental issues as being just as devastating as cancer or the COVID or whatever. And it's not. I don't think it's being viewed seriously, as you said. But it will be. Oh God, I think it's going to be a real wake up in a few years' time. Because we've closed all psychiatric hospitals, I think, and it's very difficult to get psychiatric care.
What would you advise from a professional perspective and also a personal perspective? What do you advise for those who are probably starting or in the middle, or maybe they feel like they want to end their journey or story of life? What would you advise for those people? Because there's so much trauma from so many different angles that are creeping into people's worlds. But I always say to people, a traumatic event is what happens to you. A trauma is what lives inside of you, from an emotional perspective. So there are people right now that are really suffering. And I done an interview or a talk or a short interview with a gentleman named Yami yesterday evening, and his journey was so heartbreaking. Just very quickly and briefly, his journey started off with his father abusing his mother, and when he used to see it or he used to run to the aid of his mother, his father used to beat the crap out of him. And so that was between like probably 4 and 10 years old. 10 years old, his father stabbed his mother. He was then put into a home He was then put into a home, and in the home, straight away, he started to be sexually abused. So that happened for a period of time. One day he said enough was enough, and he used a compass to stab one of the abusers. I think this one was a physical abuser, so you had a sexual one and one that was hitting him. And then he was put into prison. He has spent in institutions 38 years of his life. And there's times when you say in life, now that is unfair. And we don't have the personality of, we kind of like get on with it. But there are times where you look at some people and you say, that is unfair. And there are many people out there like Yami who are suffering in absolute silence. And for me, as I said once again, this show, if you said to me or someone said to me, Kevin, what is the mission of your show? It is to help those who don't know how to, probably they can't articulate themselves, or they don't have the confidence, or they don't have the direction to find a way to navigate through what they're experiencing.
Well, to answer your question, sorry to interrupt, but to answer your question, what would I do in an ideal world? I would do precisely what you're doing. Precisely that.
Yeah.
We have to recognize the condition is serious. We have to appreciate that loads of people are now suffering from it, and to do something about it, as you are.
Yeah.
And if more people can sort of follow your lead, I think that will be helpful. I am just so impressed.
Here's the other side of this journey that people don't recognize and know. 9 times out of 10, when I finish doing a talk or an interview or a session with someone, I walk away with the most excruciating headache, because it's an exchange of energy. And so you take on the energy of what that person's experiencing because you care. If you don't care, it will bounce off of you, or it wouldn't even penetrate your armor or your world. But when you care, it seeps in. And so I've been there's times where I'm on a low ebb and I'm like, whoa, this is not me. This is not who I am.
So who do you go to? It's all very well you providing this amazing service.
Who helps the helpline?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Who helps you?
Well, there's a few things that I do. Well, I have what I call a toolbox. And it's good that you reflected it back onto me. I love that. I love that. So I have a toolbox. I call it a toolbox because I believe every time you go into a toolbox, it's there to fix something. And so I have a toolbox, and the toolbox is a multitude of different things to help me based upon the level of pain, trauma, blockage, confusion, anger, so on and so forth that I've got going on. So it could be simple things like brisk walking. Brisk walking is very important. It's one of the absolute pills to deal with depression.
I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. So brisk walking is something what I do. I have an inner circle, and I call it my vulnerability circle. And my vulnerability circle simply means I can talk to those people without feeling judged, or feeling like they will throw it back in my face in the future, or feeling like it will come back to haunt me in the future. So it's an absolute confidence circle because I need to express myself without feeling
that is so valuable.
Yeah.
And so you're seeking what you're giving to people. So
it's very important. We are designed that way. We're designed to talk, express, hug, to be tactile. We're designed to see. Here's the thing, right? When you go back, I don't know, 10,000 years, and we've been hunted and we're hunting in return, and there's a whole world of fight or flight. Stress was designed
to protect you.
Yes, for a short period of time.
Yes, because I mean, if you imagine a tribe, sort of Stone Age men, sitting around the fire, eating their buffalo or whatever it is they've killed, and then they see another tribe, hostile tribe, coming over the hills. They've got to either fight, fear, flight, fight. They've either got to run or fight.
Exactly.
To preserve themselves. So it was a saving mechanism.
Exactly.
But today, the stress is killing us.
Well, here's what I've learned is when stress goes on for a period of time, it causes inflammation on the brain.
And causes a lot of other physical symptoms too.
Exactly. And the inflammation on the brain is where depression kicks in. And if depression stays too long on the brain, it causes brain damage. And so when you have that inflammation, I mean, you know more than I do.
No, I wasn't aware that it actually physically affected the brain, but I do know that whatever medical condition you're suffering from, whether it's measles, migraine, or cancer, they are all made worse by stress.
Yes, yes.
I mean, I can barely think of any medical condition that isn't exacerbated by stress. And we are living in the most stressful times right now.
Exactly. And so what is a major stress instigator? Complication. I believe complicating our lives is very stressful. And I do believe that simplicity is the key to happiness. And when you look at some of the most successful people on the planet, we don't know how happy or sad they were, so I'm not going to kind of approach it from that perspective. But some of the most successful people on the planet are very... When you looked at Steve Jobs and how he used to live, his world was very simple.
Think of Warren Buffett. He apparently doesn't even have a computer.
Exactly. And the way how he lives is very humble and very simple. And then obviously, like, I saw a caption the other day, Mark Zuckerberg was driving like a small, very basic, it could be the equivalent of like £4,000 Honda car. And there was all these comments online, why is he acting like this? He's got all this money in the world. And if people can understand that these people partially are successful because they keep things very simple. And the more we introduce different complications into our life, the more we got to keep fixing and outing fires and dealing with stress and trying to maintain and trying to represent and all these different things that we are doing over and over again, we end up not enjoying the things we accumulate, but we also accumulate the stress with the things we accumulate.
Yes, you put it terribly well. I hadn't thought of it quite like that. So, as I said, I'm so excited about this new business. I think I'll have to check in myself, quite frankly. It seems like you're offering something that everybody could benefit from.
I mean...
Not just people who feel that they're really at the end of their tether, but most of us have some anxieties.
100%.
And better to deal with it before it gets too bad.
Yeah, I mean... What are we here for on this planet? What are we here?
That's a very profound question. What are we here for?
do you know what I believe? I believe we are here for servitude, but not slavery. So there's always a fine line where we say enough is enough. And I believe that we are here for a purpose. I think we have to have purpose in our journey, and we should have servitude in our journey. And I believe we can discover servitude in what we're passionate about. And so... I've tried many different things that helps others, but it was very painful to me. So I didn't enjoy it and I stopped. And then I readjusted, I approached, I came back again. And each time I discovered a bit of me in the new discovery. And then here I am today. I'm extremely passionate about helping, building, empowering people. And so I naturally, from a business perspective, we was talking briefly about business before. From a business perspective, I said to myself, okay, there's 3 requirements I'm looking for. 1, are they large in numbers? 2, are they passionate about the product or service? Or if it's not the product or service, are they passionate about their situation?
Yeah.
And 3, if it was from a business perspective solely, do they have the disposable income in order to help that practice or service or business to maintain itself in order to serve others?
Yes, you see, there's a stumbling block, isn't it? There's always money always comes into it.
Well, that's it's unfortunate in some cases, but this is the reality of what where we are. And so what I'm putting systems together now to do is, in one hand, we can accumulate money. In the other hand, we can serve others, because it's very hard to serve if there's no pipeline. There's only so far that water's going to travel.
Absolutely. I'm afraid to say, although people say, source of all evil, you can't live without it.
Yeah.
In this society here.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. And so, and this is what we're putting together at this precise time. And I know you've been doing some amazing projects yourself over time. I remember you're doing a charity. I mean, we've been friends for so many
Well,
years, and
yes,
you've done
I
so
mean,
many different
I've
things.
done some crazy things, but as long as it doesn't matter what you do, as long as it helps whatever your particular cause
How
is.
have you found it for yourself? Just like, so you've served so much people. I mean, and you're so humble with it, and that's what I love about you. That's why I've always had, and I still do have a level of respect for you, because what you've achieved in your lifetime. I don't know, put 10
Well,
of,
you're terribly flattering.
put 10 of me together, and I'm not sure if we'll quite get there. But so, you've done so much in your lifetime. What have you enjoyed the most? What are if we put the top three, what have you enjoyed the most? And let's put family aside, because
Good
people normally say
gracious,
family.
I don't think I can truthfully answer that in public.
Okay, put that one aside as well. Then.
Yeah, it's all right. Yes,
Whatever one that came into your mind first.
Really, I love doing projects. Projects of them, musical or fashion shows, or anything that's quite creative, because that gives me a buzz. I mean, if I was wanting to help a charity, I couldn't possibly do a marathon. A, I'd find it terribly dull, and B, physically, I can't run more than 2 yards. I mean, smoking and all the rest of it. So, I think I've had a lot of fun doing all the causes that I have supported in the past. So, you see, I'm not really as saintly as you make me out to be, because I've always enjoyed doing it, and we've all had a bit of a blast.
And so you said something really important there. You always, and I've realised, you enjoy what you do. You enjoy what you do. And that keeps you going.
But it certainly does. I mean, what's that old expression they say? If you enjoy what you're doing, you've never worked a day in your life.
Yes, yes,
like
very true.
I've got it wrong. I always get the
Very
things
true.
back front. But that really is true. I mean, I found being a doctor was like being paid, money for old rope. I would have done it for free.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been very privileged, very blessed to have enjoyed what.
So going in, we're in a time in the UK, obviously. We're in a time of Brexit.
Oh, Lord.
And Brexit seems to be oh gosh, no one will talk about Brexit again. But Brexit now is actually in full force. And
Oh no, it is. I don't think we've seen anything yet. I mean,
No,
people
I mean
are
the
beginning
after
to suffer.
effects. Yeah,
but
I
it's
mean,
just starting, in my
yes,
opinion.
Yes, exactly, and that's what I want to ask you. What do you see for the future of the UK, especially concerning Brexit?
Well, of course, I'm not a politician, but like everybody, I've got a point of view on it. I'm sorry to say, I think it seems obvious. This isn't something I've come up with. Listening to the pundits and people who know more about these things. Evidently, we're going to have a real tough time with the economy, and it seems to me that the people who are suffering most from this Brexit are the people who have the least, and this wasn't made apparent, when we were doing voting for it one way or the other, but it's so often the case, and as a result of that, I think there's a possibility that a significant number of people in our country might just say enough is enough. We've had a pandemic where people have been losing their jobs, not enough money to live off. And then Brexit is going to cause havoc with the economy. And so it's like the perfect storm. And I wonder if people won't say enough is enough, and that will be very frightening. But of course, I'm not a politician, and I don't have all the information at hand, but just looking as a bystander who I listen to the radio and what people have to say and friends, this seems to be the general feel that people are having enough. Tighten the belt for a year, but to go on and on with no light at the end of the tunnel, I would be very worried. And the other thing is, I feel that it's the younger generation, your generation, who are going to suffer. It was my generation who voted for Brexit, but we'll be dead and under the ground when the full impact of it will hit your age group. And you can't, you won't be European anymore, travelling, all the things that you love to do are going to be so much more difficult.
Well,
But it's what's
well,
done is done. We have to put up.
because it's interesting, what's a simple maths for me? Well, I wasn't great in school when it comes to maths. However, if you're seeing 300,000 jobs being lost, and a fraction of those jobs are being replaced,
There's a problem, isn't there?
there's a problem. And
And I don't think people have appreciated that,
Yeah.
But it's going to surface.
because
It'll be a time bomb.
they provided furlough. Obviously they done furlough in the name of the pandemic, but they provided furlough. They provided many different things. So people, I can't say all, but a lot of people don't know that there's a storm on its way because they're kind of surviving on what's being given out for all different reasons, and there is going to be a pain. We were talking about before earlier about a conversation that we had. Well, I had with and it wasn't just me in the room. It was a lot of people with Nicolas Sarkozy, the ex-French president.
So isn't he in disgrace at the moment?
Oh yeah, for quite a while now. Yeah.
Yeah.
For based on his corruption charges and stuff, and he said something really, really important, and it got me thinking. He said within the next 25 years, what Europe is fearing, within the next 25 years, the younger generation of Africa are gonna rise and they're gonna take over Europe. That's their belief system, and it got me thinking. And he said it for a multitude of reasons. He says one of them is that in Europe they don't have children at the rate that they are having in Africa. But in Africa, many parts of Africa, their world is about excellence, education excellence. When it comes to tech now, technology, finance, and also investments, the younger generation of Africans are coming up, and they're becoming a force to be reckoned with.
Just at the time when in our country things are rather difficult, and our educational system apparently is failing many children. So
yeah, and so with that said, what would you say to those who, as you said, that the future's looking bleak if they don't prepare themselves, and also kind of become more independent, don't rely on governments, because clearly you vote for one government, you're in tears. You vote for another government.
I think it's very easy. The solution is very easy to say, difficult to do. It's all about education. Let us get, as they have in Africa, let us get our English British education up to standards that it used to be, or the same as the rest of the world, because it seems that we're being told that kids are coming out of school unable to read and write. Now this makes them not fit to live in the adult world. And so, of course, any people can come and... it's education. I really do believe that education is part of the solution.
Yeah, I think education and applied action. Because once you're educated, I know some people that are extremely educated, but they don't have no confidence in themselves.
Oh, yes, that's another thing entirely. But, I mean, you've got to start somewhere.
Yes.
So start with educating our kids so that they don't go into the workforce unable to do a particular job which will be taken by someone else who has had a better education.
Yeah, exactly.
See, and to give them a lifestyle and hopes. And you really must learn to read, write, and do your sums. It's as simple as that, in my opinion.
Wow, yeah.
And
also we have to look into the families as well, because you've got such great insight. When we was talking for so long before we even started recording. It almost feels like we've already said it all, but we have it on camera. But, you said some really powerful points before, because I don't want anyone to see this and think, oh, she's just simplifying it. No, you said so much before about helping also the parents that are in dire straits at home.
Absolutely.
Helping, because, yes, the child goes to school, for example, and they're in school, but when they come home, what are they coming home to?
Yes, very often it's coming home to an empty flat and no one to look after them, because the mother or the father, if they're a single parent, they'll be out working to put food on the table.
Yeah.
And these children don't have a chance. Now, you see, if one were to look after these families, help them, assist them, a lot of people would say, oh, they're just scrounging off the state, let them get on with it. They made their bed, they should lie in it. No, that isn't the attitude, because for every child that's brought up in those sort of circumstances, they're going to cause problems for society when they grow up, aren't they? Because how are they going to feed themselves or any children they have if they're not educated and they've got problems? They will turn to criminal behaviour.
Very true.
And so it's not just assisting the lazy and those who don't want to work. Not at all. It should be, we should look after these families, bearing in mind that it will affect the future. If we don't look after them, we have, in my opinion, a rather bleak future.
Brilliant. And so just our final question or so. Where do we go from here? As I said, this show is fundamentally about helping, building, empowering people. What advice would you give to... I'm really putting you on...
Oh, you are! I'm not certain that I'm qualified to answer this at all, because, I mean, my children... there are certain people around me who think that I am off my rocker one way or another.
Well, no, trust me, I've got family members as well who just think Kevin, you are not in a position to talk about... And so I think, I think we've all got that
where are
closer
you
to us.
going to go next? Where's society going to go? Where are you going to go?
Yeah, I mean, what advice would you give to those, once again, as I said, who are kind of suffering in silence?
Talk to someone. Talk. That really is helpful. And if you don't have anyone to talk to, there are plenty of helplines now that have been popping up during this pandemic. Because so often it's the feeling of isolation and loneliness that exacerbates these things. So it's talk. So this is why I am so impressed with what you're doing. But helplines, anything, that could be the way forward.
And what I would say is do not run to social media.
Oh, Lord.
Because what happens, people go to social media for their outlet, and all of a sudden they read the comment section.
Yes.
And that sends them even darker and deeper.
Well, I'm not of the generation that really understands all this social media.
I mean, we're in a day and age now where majority of men out there, and I'm saying this as a man talking to men, the majority of men, especially who I talk to and have conversations with, they don't have the confidence to even approach a woman anymore, because that muscle has weakened, because on social media now everything's a text and everything's a message. So when they see a woman in front of them, for example, they don't have that muscle to go and approach that woman and say whatever.
Quite apart from the fact that they don't know how to write anymore. I mean, when my godchildren and so on, when they write to me, it's all in text speak or something. So losing the art of conversation. No, don't get me started on this, because I absolutely loathe all this social media, tweeting and tweeting and no, Instagramming. No, not for me.
So even though, regardless, social media is good, we have to be pensive about...
Yeah, I've got to be very wary. The rule that I have is that I never send an email or a photograph or anything that I wouldn't mind the whole world seeing. I just work on the sort of basis that someone's going to hack me and whatever. So I never do anything that I wouldn't want the whole world to see. And so far, that's worked. One day I'm sure someone will come up with a compromising picture of me. That won't be so good, but never mind. You have to take the rough with the smooth.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't shoot, you don't score, right?
That's quite right. No social media for me. But I'm very impressed with what you're doing.
Thank you.
And I think I'm quite serious when I say I'll be a client of yours.
Wow, and that's actually the plan, is to find people who
can get up and talk about it and make it seem that you haven't actually got leprosy.
Exactly. So, Anna, I want to thank you, and also, as I said before, I want to thank you for being a friend, because you've had my back when many's turned against me. So I've got to say thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to have a drink now.
Thank you.
Oh, dear. No, this is so impressive.